focus on the lesson. Live in the hills, but I still get a spread. Started with a little, but I still reinvest it. Fear how I feel, then you feel it's a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but they sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down, hold it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got your watch list coming in on March 7, 2022, and the stock market is gonna go crazy this week. It is gonna be all about Russia and Ukraine, but on top of it, the commodity craziness in week 2. That is what everybody is gonna be looking at, and on top of it, we will be getting this CPI this week. So we have Powell the week after it. We're waiting for the developments, and we had a couple of things over the weekend. The futures have not opened just yet, but it looks like volatility is going to be here. If you don't remember last week, we were waiting for a lot of different things, but you could see all of that movement. We really did not do much. So there's a lot of headlines we're going to have to go over. There's a lot of different news. There's a lot of plays, and I even have some updates. And then we have everything for the rest of the week. So let us not delay. Drop your thumbs up on the video if you find it helpful, and hopefully we see you there in the morning. We are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open, youtube.com/thestockmarket. We will see you there in the morning. And before I get to the random comment picker, I need to highlight this. You saw it last week. This is going to be the main theme of this week. What happens to energy, oil, commodities, agriculture, anything of that nature? It is the key to watch. And what this pretty picture is showing you, as of last week, that last Friday, you saw 6 industrial metals or key industrial metals. They hit their all-time high, higher than 2008. And literally, that was the biggest single day oil gain that we had in oil ever. So lots of stuff to watch, and just don't forget, today is Monday, or today's Sunday, tomorrow's Monday, but this is the random comment picker. We need you to post a random play, strike price, expiration date, all of that below $100. We will pick it in the morning. And shout out to Chad. You've been doing pretty good. I didn't sell the RTX though, so we got to handle that. But as far as everything in the rest of the week, do not forget how important commodities will be. But as far as any offensives or attacks this weekend, the weekend was actually quiet. You didn't hear much, but a lot of the headlines, it was all about oil and commodities. People were talking about the prices. I don't know if you noticed this weekend, chances were you saw a local gas station and you were like, what? That is high. So a lot of people have been talking about this. There was news about the U.S. now considering an embargo on oil, so that has people shocked. It seems like futures from Asia to Australia, everything's kind of balancing around. So we are going to see what happens, but there was no further developments or pushing military action. There was a couple of back and forth with like shelling and all that, but nothing with a nuclear facility. And there was updates on as far as the Russian default in the bonds. We'll talk about it, but essentially the weekend wasn't that bad, but definitely there was nothing positive that came out of it. That's why when futures open up and we start taking a look at it, that will be the key. But we already mentioned it here. Do not forget about the CPI, and this one is going to be very important because despite what happens there, Russia, Ukraine, assuming it's a slower week, or if it's a bigger one, we'll see what happens. But people will definitely respond to the CPI, and give you a pretty picture with it. The expectations for this week, CPI is expected to come in around 7.8%. This would be the highest move since 1984. I'm sure you've seen a lot of back and forth in a lot of these charts, but if you notice, this one looks different because now we are widening the chart out. The scale is increasing. So whatever CPI we get, this is going to be the first one since anything, in the last CPI before Powell comes on next week. So this is definitely going to be the key. But as far as everything else, this week is going to be very straightforward, either watching the data or watching Ukraine. But specifically now, we need to watch the price of commodities, everything from basic commodities, and start thinking what could technically be an input cost to some of your favorite industries. But this is what we're going to look for even tomorrow. Like I said, some of the peace talk corridors, there was a couple of negative developments, but you will be getting another one of these peace convoys in the morning. So I want to see all the developments up until that point, and then watch out for this in the morning. And then besides that, we're going to watch the day-to-day. And the question is now, how far do the commodities go? And like we talked about last week, what you really want to pay attention for, if we do magically get a very green day, you need to pay attention to see if commodities and energy go up with it, because essentially that is going to be the warning sign. What you don't want to see this week is for commodities to keep increasing at the pace of last week, because then if they have to decline, it already brings us back to a high level, and then that's where it starts putting pressure on the Fed and really everybody all across the world. So keep your eye out for the peace talks in the morning. You also should be watching for anything with Russian default and Russian bonds, and we do have some developments, but besides that, I wouldn't be surprised to watch us trade a lot like last week unless there is a notably good development, aka you hear the word ceasefire, or we see a negative development start to come around, and now it looks like it is escalating even more than what we have already seen in the last 2 weeks. So coming into the company news and events, this is the first piece, and this is what you got to watch for this week. But Russia and Russian companies, they will be allowed to pay foreign creditors in rubles, and this goes contrary to the decree that Putin had initially, saying no, we're not going to let any money leave. And then you have all the sanctions, and now this is where it gets important, because now he said no, we've made all of our payment in rubles, we're allowing all of our companies to make those payments, but now since other countries have sanctions on receiving them, it makes it a little bit difficult. So this is a very big story, because this could lead to a meltdown. Again, even though it's Russia, we've talked about this, it's been a long time since you've seen a modern government default on their debt or have some of their big companies default. So in a weird way, this is like the war version of Evergrande. So this is what we're going to watch for, and what a lot of people are debating is that technically it is a technical default. Again, think like Evergrande, but what they're saying is that even though Russia had the ability and made their payments in rubles on time, given the situation, the sanctions, all of that, since a bondholder wouldn't be receiving their money on that date, so they can't reinvest the treasury, that's what makes it a default. But now they have like a 10-day grace period and a lot of stuff, but theoretically speaking, they made the payment. So it's going to add a lot of confusion here. We're definitely going to watch this. And another piece of news, the Bank of Russia also said that they will be reducing the amount of info that commercial banks are required to publish with everything going on. So we may not even get accurate financial data, or they are just not required to disclose given the current situation. So anything this week, watch out for these two different headlines, but especially anything related to Russian bonds, that very well will be a good catalyst and a big one. So keep your eyes out for that. And then we talked about this a lot last week. I'm sure you're going to hear it this week, and we will see the effects, but there is some more updates to the Iran oil deal. Secretary Blinken said that they are close to agreement, but there are a couple of hurdles. Apparently, Russia now is getting in the way, and then also Iran is trying to make sure, or trying to get some guarantees that the U.S. won't torpedo the deal like they did last time. So still a couple of back and forth headlines. Watch out, because that can affect oil. But then Secretary Blinken, this is what everybody is focusing on, and this is a very big piece of news for the weekend, but he said that the United States and their allies are discussing an embargo of Russian oil. So if you don't remember what happened last week, it started out saying, yeah, we should do this embargo. Then you had bipartisan support, and the White House said, nah, we're not considering that. And then remember Friday, they said, well, now we're considering it. And then you got a little bit more updates here from Blinken. So we are going to watch, but a lot of people are pointing to a big effect of these comments on oil. So watch out for that tomorrow. And then even more oil, Carl Icahn, he sold the rest of his stake of Oxy. He netted over $1 billion. He was trying to do some activist investing. He owned 10% of the company, but he has sold out of it. And then I believe Berkshire Hathaway, I think they are making a push, but watch out. Oxy was a real killer on Friday, so definitely watch them and any oil companies. And then Visa and Mastercard, they announced that they're suspending all operations in Russia. So did Netflix. And then TikTok, they banned live streaming, and it's only due to the fake news law. Again, last week, Putin put in a law that said you could be jailed up to like 10 years for fake news. So they didn't ban TikTok, but TikTok said because of that law, they are stopping people from using the live streaming feature. So pretty interesting, but watch out for that. And then the Freedom Convoy, like the truckers in Canada, there's one coming to DC. Apparently, they're just like doing a circle around it, and they're going to plan to repeat it every day. So we'll keep our eye on it, see if it leads to any developments. Again, it was like, what, a week or two with the Canada stuff. I don't know if this one will be as disruptive, so we will see what happens. And then the China NPC, not non-player computer or whatever it's called, but this is their Nationalist Party convention, I believe. It's this week. You're going to hear a lot, but some people are saying it could either lead to more crackdowns or more easing, but this is definitely going to be a watch, especially for anything going on with China and just all of that. They've kind of been in the middle but quiet, but this is a very big event. And then apparently there's going to be an Apple new product launch on Tuesday. I think more 5G iPhones and low-cost ones. ones. And then finally, Disney over the weekend, they said that they are offering a lower priced version of Disney Plus that will have ads. So that could be pretty interesting to watch. But overall, all of the news this weekend, it was all about Russia and the developments. We will have those bright and early in the morning tomorrow. And don't forget about that little peace convoy. But now we're going to wait for the data and the CPI, but it is still all eyes on the second week. And is this going to escalate into something bigger and commodities go crazy? We will see. But that is pretty much it. So let us get into the plays. So right off the bat, I have to go over the plays, but the futures have opened and Brent hit a high of 137. That is a $20 jump on the open of futures. Are going to get another limit up halt there, it looks like, on wheat, but it looks like commodities are going to go crazy so far. So this is definitely going to be the focus. But as far as the first play, you guys have seen the strategy. It is going to be wheat. So I am going to be watching this tomorrow. But one thing I need everybody to understand, this is an ETF. You probably saw over the weekend that they did a share offering, and this is what is supposed to happen. Literally, an ETF, they can issue more and more shares, and the idea is as more people invest into it, they make sure that the value of the ETF represents or is equal to the value of the assets that the wheat ETF holds. In this case, it is wheat futures. So essentially, if a lot of people buy into the index, it may drive the price up, but they add more shares to make it equivalent to the price of the net asset value that they're holding, and then they take the money and then they reinvest. Sometimes they hold it in cash just to keep a good balance. I don't know if they lever up. In this case, wheat is a unlevered ETF, so they own everything outright. But I really want to make sure that you guys understand this, because now this could create opportunities for arbitrage. So if you saw it on Friday, we talked about this a lot, come on stream, but essentially we're going to watch this tomorrow. As far as now, wheat is going to be another 5th day limit up. And I'll tell you this now too, if it ever does start to go down, the same thing is going to happen on the downside. But in the meantime, I'm going to be watching wheat. We have both ways. Remember, we're up 1,000% on the one call play, and then we even got 100% on the puts. And really, that's how I'm going to be playing it. And I want you guys to keep this in mind. Right now, we're dealing with the short term. This is a very historical commodity rush, but I'll tell you right now, for wheat and a lot of other these commodities, wheat especially, spring is going to be the next catalyst. It is one thing right now as it moves, but after this move stops, this is the first kind of a unleashing of pressure. And then once it kind of stabilizes a little bit, if we're going to get our double dip or anything, it's one thing to look at price, but now this is agriculture. You got to think about the timeline. Spring is going to be the next catalyst. So I hope you're not a watch hole and remember this, okay? I hope you get it, baby. But watch out for that. We're going to be watching that. We're still holding all of our plays, but that is the first play. Then coming into the second play now, it's going to be Boeing, and I really like this. Again, in the midst of everything, it looks like Lockheed went up, but you even see not every defense name, even RTX chilled out, but Boeing especially, they're hitting a dangerous point. If you guys have watched long enough, again, we've played Boeing a couple times, and usually when it breaks out, that's where it gets crazy. So the contracts are moving. It may finally be the time. I'm really going to be watching Boeing this week. If it breaks below any of these other levels, then I really think we're going to be getting a play on there. But as far as the play, I have these March 160s, so a little bit of time, and I like how these have an extra week. I may want to grab for some other ones, but even with this contract, since it's already up about like 200-300%, what I want to see, if this ends up taking a longer time to materialize, essentially at these lows, if Boeing ends up kind of like bouncing up a little bit, I may use that as the opportunity to double dip. But like I'm saying here, you start to pull this out, this is a very, very big level for them, more or less. It does start to remind me of Baba. It's either going to flush or it does it slow. So we're going to see, but that is the second play I'm really going to be watching. And then the third play, ACH. I still have the Alcoas. We cut some of those on the weekend. We still have the Brent crude play, and I think that one is going to be fire. I may even look for some other companies as well, but in the midst of this and watching some of the other aluminum commodity plays, I like ACH. It's got some of it, but I still think it's a little bit of a sleeper. So going to be watching my eyes on it this week. I really want to see, okay, if we get another commodity rush and it is like last week, do some of these sleepers come to life? And that will really let us know, okay, these are going to be viable plays or not. So watch out for that. And then finally, Apple, cheap Apple puts. This is a play I made on Friday. A lot of people were asking questions about it, and you've seen this strategy before. Essentially, after some of the headlines and thinking about this weekend, I was like, all right, I want a little bit of exposure to puts because a lot of the puts are butterflies are up. The old IWMs are down, even though we got them before the butterfly. So even then, pretty much your butterfly puts, the top end, they might even be down right now. So I was like, well, those are down. The play still costs a lot. I was like, well, if there's any volatility, I want some exposure. I already have the commodity plays, which will go up. So I started looking at Apple, and it really seemed to me like this would be cheaper to play than the SPY. And really what I went for, I grabbed 100 of the April 80 puts for about 6 cents. So I spent like $600. And the idea here, like I said, if you do wake up to a lot of volatility, sometimes these chains, they start giving out any of these cheap options. I even went to look for the shorter duration ones because, again, if I was going to spend 6 cents, you could have came a lot closer to the money. But even at the time, I noticed all of these plays were already up like 50 or 60. So why I decided to go here for the 80s, essentially at 6 cents when I bought them, they were at the same price as the day before. So got to experience all of Friday, all of the oil news. You got to see where it was, but by the time I bought it, all of these premiums, they were up already, either 60, 20%, depending on the time or how close you got to the money. So I said, well, let me get rid of some of these cheaper options because essentially if we wake up to any volatility, then they're not going to have any cheap options on the chain. And surprisingly, it was a little bit cheaper there than any of the SPY or IWM. So that was the final play. Even in general, I'd keep your eye out for this strategy. If we get a lot of volatility, sometimes this works, but sometimes it does not hit. Even those like Alcoas, if you guys remember, we were holding those, and those ones didn't move for a while. Even after this move, you really needed the craziness. So we will see what happens, but those are the main plays as far as everything else. I grabbed a couple of other plays. I grabbed these Tesla March 600 puts for about like $1.80, I think, at the time. They were holding. I think the spread was a little bit wacky there, but I've been going after these every other week. I've been hitting them. The other one I didn't sell out, and I took the other Yandex instead that week, but keeping my eye out for that. I sold half of those snap puts. Remember, that came up on the scanner. They went up 100%. Sold half, made them free, and then I sold half of the Alcoa like we talked about. And this play was actually a little bit of a sleeper killer one. They're at 95 cents right now, 90 the last trade. I sold some out at 60. I think I have 10 or 20 left, but we bought these at 10 cents not too long ago. So that one was a nice 1,000% or just under, but holding all those, holding the wheats. As far as everything else, definitely watching B&O. We are going to be in the money, and that will go crazy tomorrow. Watch Baba. I want to see. Some people are talking about Alipay becoming one of the alternatives there with the Visa Mastercard stuff, but they're also hitting a very, very key level. So watch out for them. LMT, they started to come up, and there was news of a $800 million contract there with the government, but going to be watching those. We sold out of those plays. We have the RTX, but things go crazy. They may wake up, and then again, we is watch for the arbitrage opportunities because, again, just going to be all about net asset value and all of that. I will have a lot of that information there tomorrow morning, but you'll see. But essentially, just understand this thing is not going to get gamma squeezed. The demand that comes into this is only going to increase the amount that they could end up buying, and that'll be good in the long run or midterm for this, but it's not going to affect the price. The price of the ETF is designed very well to reflect what the ETF is holding, so just don't forget about this, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Shout out to WEAT and then Oxy. They were the leader. You got Berkshire and Icahn news. I want to see how it plays out tomorrow, and we'll even get an idea of the premiums and go from there. Watch Alcoa, again, KGC2, KGC, ACH. Those are the second, third string plays from last week, but they went up. We're still holding the share, so again, watch anything commodity related, and even Altria, even though some people said they would do bad, I mean, they've been actually doing good and on a tear. I might look for some short-term plays this week, but they could start breaking out above here again, like 54, 55. It's really going to change the long-term trajectory, and again, with the dividend yield they're providing, it's actually looking quite nice, so we're going to see what happens with them. Tesla, like we said, Disney, I really like the cheaper Disney Plus news, so we'll see. Remember, they had good earnings, and they're back to that level, so we will definitely watch how this plays out, but watch out for them. And then Baba, like we said, then finally TLT, the dollar is one to definitely watch. It's breaking out. It is now the safe haven. We'll watch other countries this week. It might even be a good time to make a play if the contracts didn't go too crazy, but if anything, I would rather be focusing on TLT. And again, it's one thing for the war here, but don't underestimate CPI and bonds. This can move a lot, and if anything, with liquidity and a lot of those metrics we saw last week, if those start signaling things, well, we may very well have a better idea. Maybe we get an early snitch, but right now, now. It is all about the commodities, so don't lose sight of that. But that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure hydrate, healthy, ready to go. Make sure post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shine. I need you to remember. All you gotta do is believe, baby. But the Cole loves you. All of you. I will see you in the morning. Let's go.